Hi, I'm Wendy Gratz from Shiny Happy World, and this cute lemur is the current pattern in the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. When I say current, it is April 1st, 2023, and this is the pattern that goes with the club this month. So if you're in the club already, you should have already gotten an email that has a link to download the pattern, or you can find it in the clubhouse. If you are not in the club yet and you join anytime in the month of April, this is the pattern that you're going to get instant access to. If you're watching this video in the future and it is past April and you want to know how to get the pattern, you can find it in the shop at shinyhappyworld.com, and it'll be there in the shop sometime the end of May. So here's how to make him. Okay, this lemur has a lot of parts. So there are actually going to be 2 pages of templates that you're going to need to print out on your fusible adhesive. 22 pieces. That is a lot, but it's not as complicated as you think it's going to be. One thing that I will say about this one is that there are some pieces like the stripes on the tail that are difficult to tell apart. So for those, you're really going to want to use the numbers on this placement guide as a reference. So that will help you figure out which piece goes where, which eye goes on which side, for example, and make it a lot easier to put together. So this is the version of the video showing how to put it together if you don't have a light box. And so that means I've needed to transfer all of these dotted lines on the back of the pattern pieces onto the fabric side. So you'll just want to hold it up in a window and those lines will show right through the fabric and you can trace them no problem. So anything that is darker fabric, dark enough, I use a chalk line, just a chalk pencil to make those lines. But this one has a lot of white in it because lemurs have a lot of white on them. And so for those places, I used just a pencil, just a number 2 pencil. And some of the pieces where I'm going to put an eye on there, for example, and it is just going to be solid black. It doesn't matter that this black line will show through. So I just use a fine tip Sharpie. It's a permanent pen. But it doesn't matter because the places where I use it, I'm either going to applique over with solid black like this nose, or I'm going to stitch right over that little smile with black thread. And so it's black thread on black marker. You'll never see that marker. Okay, so here's how we put them together. So just one more thing, the numbers for this method of putting it together with no light box, the numbers are really just for reference. If you have a light box, they also tell you what order you're going to lay the pieces down in. But we are going to figure that out ourselves, or I'm going to show you. So I always like to start with the piece that goes off the edge of the block. And that is usually a piece that is straight cut across the bottom. So I like to format my pieces what I call snapshot style. So I want this to look like I've just snapped a photo of this lemur and he has a body, it's just not showing, where if you have it up here, then it looks like the body is cut off. So if you put it and line it up, those straight edges up with the straight edge at the bottom of the block, then that edge is going to be sewn into your seam allowance when you sew your blocks together and it'll look like a little snapshot. So I'm going to put that in first and then I'm going to put in the tail. And I may need to do a little bit of shifting around to get this centered because that glorious striped tail that they have is going to throw things off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and set that tail in place, and I already can tell I need to move this over a little bit to get that head to fit in. So I'm going to just experimentally put the head in place. Again, I may need to shift these around a little bit, but I think that's going to work. So the head's going to go roughly here, and there is going to be an ear over on this side, and that's the main thing that I'm worried about making work. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck that ear. So it has a line here at the bottom, and you're just going to tuck that behind the head, and as soon as that line is covered, you know you've got enough overlap. And so I do need to shift this over a little bit, but I think I'm going to be okay with that positioning in the block. All right, so now I'm going to put his belly on. And that sits over these pieces, his belly piece here. And now I'm going to put his little muzzle piece on. That's what that line is telling me. That's where the muzzle piece overlaps it. So we're going to set that in place. And now we can tuck the head piece down so that this line gets covered by the muzzle. So we're just going to need to shift this down a smidge and the muzzle up a smidge. And there, that is already looking super cute. So I'm going to go ahead and put his forehead on so that we have the full shape of his head. And this line is telling me where the forehead overlaps. Now I'm going to just retuck this ear back behind there. Their ears, if you look at the reference guide, the ears almost stick straight out. Like on a cat, that ear would be much more pointing up, but on lemurs it points very sideways. So we want to get those pointed sideways like that. And get that on this side. Now reset the forehead because I bumped it. All right, now I'm going to get the ears in there. So this is the inner ear piece number 4, which means it goes on the right side. And again, I'm just covering up these lines. 3 goes on this side. And now let's get these eyes in here. So 11 is the eye on the right, and usually the eyes are pretty interchangeable, but lemurs have these kind of glowing yellow eyes that I really wanted to make sure that I included on there, and they're mirror images of each other, so they are not totally interchangeable. So now 12 is the golden part, the iris, for this side. And then 9 is on the other side. And now I'm going to have the pupils. It doesn't matter. The others, it just matters. If you moved them, it might make him look cross-eyed or wall-eyed or just a little different, make him look like he's looking in a different direction, which might be something that you want to try. You can always play around. Until you fuse it, everything is movable. All right, there's his eyes. Now let's get his nose in there, and then we'll put some stripes on that fabulous tail. All right, so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So number 18 is the lowest stripe. And that goes where I've marked it here. And we work our way up. 19 goes there. 20 goes up here. 21 goes there. And 22 goes on the very tip of his tail. All right, so I'm going to double check, make sure I've got everything where I want it to be. I'm going to carry this carefully over to the ironing board, fuse all those pieces in place, and then I'll do all of the outline stitching, and I'll bring it back and I'll show you the finished block and also show you 2 other color versions that I made. All right, here is the finished block. You will notice that the eye fabric is different when I was assembling the pieces, layering them together. When I first cut them out, I forgot that these were dark spots around his eyes, and I just saw 3 eye pieces and immediately thought whites of the eyes and didn't even reference my design sketch. So I swapped those out. So in the assembly video, you'll see that those were whites of his eyes, but this is actually correct. Lemurs have dark spots around their eyes. I didn't realize until after I had done all of the outline stitching, so you'll be happy to know that you actually can pick that out. It's difficult and not fun, but you can pick out all of the stitching and then just hit it with an iron for 5 seconds, and that will soften up the adhesive enough that you can just peel those pieces off and then cut out new ones, which is what I did for all three of the blocks that you're about to see here. So this is the one that we put together without a light box. And this is the one that we put together with a light box, and that is a separate video. That is its own video. And then I've got one more that I forgot to tell you. People always want to know the fabrics. So the background fabric is from the Farmer's Market Lights collection, and it is a collection of quilt blocks all in the same color palette, and they have these quilting lines actually printed on the fabric. All of the fabrics, all of the gray and white fabrics for the lemur are from the Elephant Blenders collection, which is all different shades of gray. And the kind of golden eyes are from the Lion Blenders collection. Both of those are from the Animal Kingdom palette. So this guy also uses grays and gold from the Animal Kingdom palette. So again, Elephant Blenders and Lion Blenders. But this one, the background block, is from the Classic Rainbow collection. It's just a very bright, true green. This is the Classic Rainbow Light, so it's the lightest shade that I have. And it's the same, it's got the quilting lines printed on it, just like the pink one that you saw. And then I've got one more color that I did. So this is the Fantasy Colored Lemur. So the background block on this one is from the Animal Kingdom collection. So it is a collection of background blocks, just like the other ones with the quilting lines drawn on it. But it is all different shades it's different shades of brown, gray, and kind of a rusty orange and that golden yellow that you saw here. So it's from that, it matches all of these blenders. So the background is the lightest brown from that collection. And then all of the blenders here for the lemur are from the Blueberry Blenders collection, which is part of the Farmer's Market color palette. And the oranges are also from the Farmer's Market color palette. They are from the Cantaloupe Blenders. So that is how you put this lemur together, and a couple of different color options for him. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and I will see you next month.